Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for being here and happy Monday to you all. We have some breaking news as of this week, and it actually came out Friday after I had already left the office for the day, and I considered cutting this video yesterday, but then the whole thing with Tim Walz came down, and I thought that was a much more fun story to cover, and you guys seem to be having a great time with that video. So I'll probably release this video on Monday afternoon sometimes, let that other one cook a little bit more if you guys want to go watch that one. But the question today is, are AR-15s and other semi-automatic rifles protected by the Second Amendment? And of course, you and I all know what the logical conclusion of that is. And yes, of course they are. Even though they're weapons of war that don't belong on our streets, weapons of war are protected by the Second Amendment. That's the whole reason the Second Amendment was ratified. Say it with me. But there is a case before the Supreme Court right now that could very well solidify the precedent that, of course, we all know to be true. And that's what we're going to be covering in today's video, because critical update on the timeline for that particular case to come down. Today's video is brought to you by XS Sights. And normally I would give you a whole spiel about how I've been using them forever and they're my go-to site, but not today. Today, we're talking about Glocktober, which is a month-long sale at XS Sights. Anything that they make that is related to Glock accessories, that is 10% off. On top of that, they've got a giveaway running. So go over to XS, check out what they got going on over there for Glocktober. It goes from the 1st of October through the 31st. So go check it out. Thanks to XS for making today's video possible. The case that we're talking about is the Snopes v. Bianchi case, or Bianchi case. We're just going to call it Snopes case for today's video. The skinny looks like this. Maryland has an assault weapons ban, a ban on commonly possessed semi-automatic rifles that are protected by the Second Amendment and enshrined in the Constitution of the United States. The second thing that they wrote. Maryland argued that
they're weapons of war that don't belong on our streets.
The whole purpose of the Second Amendment was to outline that the American citizen has a right to weapons of war. But that's a discussion for another day. Basically, where we're at is this has been challenged up the courts and is waiting certification, certiorari from the Supreme Court. So all the filings are going on right now. Well, what Maryland has attempted to do is kick the can down the road by asking for extension after extension. And you're like, oh, well, you know, what's a little extension? Well, there are terms that the Supreme Court hears cases, and they're in blocks, and they go from a certain term to a certain term, and then the next term, and then the next term, and then as those terms complete, the opinions are issued in those cases. So what they initially asked for was a 30-day extension, and the court said, okay, sure, no problem. Go ahead and, take your 30 days. Well, Maryland comes back after the 30 days, and they're like, oh, yeah, you know what? We didn't get our homework done. Can we have an additional 30 days? And that's where we're at right now. The Supreme Court just said, nah, we see what you're doing. We see what you're trying to do. Because what this would effectively do is kick it out of the current term and push it from the 24-25 term to the 25-26 term. Now, I'm going to try to paraphrase the way that this works. You've got a cert period, as in they have arguments for why they're going to or not accept the case. That is where we're at right now. But then after that, there's filings, and then when we're going to hear the thing. So what that would effectively do is make sure that the current makeup of the court does not hear the case until at least 2025, 2026 term. So maybe mid-year 2025 into 2026 is when they would actually hear the case if they are intending to actually grant certiorari. What this denial does is ensure that sometime this year, as in sometime here very quickly, they will make the determination for cert and then possibly be able to actually hear the case in early 2025, so that we might get a decision on that case in year 2025. So that's kind of what's at stake here. And of course, what they are hoping, really banking on, is that they are going to win this upcoming election and be able to appoint a different Supreme Court justice in the interim to hopefully sway their cause at the court. They do not want the current court to make another Second Amendment determination, because as things are going, it's not looking very good for them. And of course, what we're talking about is the common use concept. We saw this with the taser thing. We were talking about tens of thousands of those, and that was enough to be common use. We're talking about AR-15s and other semi-automatic rifles, AR-15s and AK-47s, and all of them vastly exceed that threshold. So duh, slam dunk, or at least that's what we would expect if all the justices did their frickin' job the way it's supposed to be done. But of course, we know that we have activists in the court. So this is kind of what I think it looks like when it shakes down. I think that Kagan and Sotomayor will pen a dissenting opinion, but I think it'll be considerably more centrist than you might think, just because they want to look kind of more mainstream. I've been pretty impressed with both of their questions on Second Amendment related issues lately. They seem somewhat insightful when it comes to that portion of their job. At least it seems like they maybe looking like they want to appear center left instead of hard left, so that when they pen some other decisions that they actually care about, maybe they can go a little bit more into the leftist vibe than something that they're probably going to lose anyway when they've already got pretty much established doctrine. I think they'll probably rail a little bit against the Bruin implications and things like that, but I think that they will write their dissenting opinion that's a little bit more centrist. I think that Jackson needs to write her own opinion because she feels as though she has to validate her perspective on everything. So she'll write her own opinion that it will be utterly nonsense. I think the main opinion is likely going to be written by either of these three, either Roberts, Thomas, or Kavanaugh. And the reason that I say that is Thomas is pretty much towards the end of his tenure. It would not surprise me, depending on how the election goes down, if he doesn't retire, and he wants to probably leave as many Second Amendment marks as he can. Kavanaugh is basically responsible for the Heller decision, and then Roberts is over the Fourth Circuit. So I could see either of those three taking the case, but I think that the main opinion is going to consist of something like Thomas, Roberts, Alito. Barrett concerns me. I think she may write a concurring opinion or maybe even a dissenting opinion, depending on how she goes. I don't know. I'm not super impressed with her on Second Amendment issues. Did I get my fingers all screwed up? Hang on a second. Kavanaugh, Alito, Roberts, Barrett, and Gorsuch. That's 8. What the hell? Thomas, you idiot. I don't know. Look, I don't know what's going on with my brain today. I think that those 6 will look something like the main opinion, but I think there might be a concurring opinion or two in there. Maybe from Kavanaugh, I could see him going off and specifically setting some stages for future litigation. Because remember, we have the frame and receivers thing going on right now, right? I could see an opportunity because that case is actually being heard on the merits right now. So I could see some parallels being drawn to it in this case if it ends up being accepted by the Supreme Court, because that is the question that we are talking about right now. But I see this still as a win, depending on, of course, the makeup of the court. Anything can happen at this juncture, and that's why it is exceptionally important. I don't do this very often, but it is exceptionally important that you register to vote and that you go out and vote early and in person. And that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on another video here at the VSO Gun Channel. Let me know what your thoughts are on this in the comment section down below.